This is the Team Objection podcast for June 13th, 2019, episode 395. Last week was just me and Michelle, so I will tell these two guys the same thing we talked about at the start of the episode last time, which is episode 400 is coming up. It's the last episode of July.
Wow.
Because we will not do one the week of the 4th, because the 4th is a Thursday. But episode 400 is now just next month. It's around the corner, and I already have something planned.
Perfect.
Yes. Are you going to give us a hint?
No.
Give the audience a hint?
No. Which is
All right.
probably not a very good tease, but I mean, if you need a tease to tune in, then why are you here in the first place?
Go listen to 300 and 200 and 100, and then,
All of which were good episodes, by the way.
Exactly. They were.
We
They
went
very
all
much
out
were.
for all of them.
Mm-hmm.
This episode, however, since it's just the boys this week and Michelle is off entertaining people or whatever's happening there, is going to be about the NBA. The NBA Finals are in full swing. Game 6 is tonight, as at the time you're listening to this. If it's the day it comes out, shut up. It's complicated. That's tonight. Warriors down 3-2 after pulling out a win on Monday night in Game 5 with a whole bunch of other things that happened. So we're going to talk about the finals to some extent, free agency to some extent, the Suns a little bit, although nothing's really changed a ton since the last time we talked about them, but a little bit, and the draft is coming up pretty soon.
Suns cat, not Suns cast.
Basketball.
Cast.
Suns
Bulbasaur.
tangential related cast.
NBA
Yeah.
CAST.
Yeah, it's not really sports cast because we're not talking about hockey.
No.
Just one sport.
We're talking about one sport. Is the NBA? Is the NBA cast?
In hockey, did someone win the Stanley Cup yet?
Who
No.
gives a shit?
Game 7
Okay.
was last night.
Okay, cool.
It's not
Although-
just hockey. If you asked me who won the Super Bowl, I also wouldn't care.
I heard a fun story at work today since the St. Louis paper is also owned by us and it's like the big one by far out of everything that's under our umbrella. They accidentally had, only in their online edition, not in print, luckily for them, but in their online edition, they had like 4 full-page ads congratulating the St. Louis Blues on winning the Cup, and then they lost Game 6.
Oopsie.
So it's not like full-on do it if he's Truman, and again, it was only online so they could fix it.
That's how
and
you
take it
curse
down.
people, man.
Yeah, and then they lost 5-1, and now they had to pull out Game 7. Did they? I don't know. We're recording Tuesday. It happens tomorrow night, but,
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, nobody cares, but it's like, oh no. As a newspaper person, I was like, oh god, that feels. I'm sure as people discover that, they're like, ugh.
So NBA Finals Game 5. The Warriors gutted it out. What are the implications now? Who has the momentum?
I would say, it's going to come up, so I'll just say, if Kevin Durant didn't get hurt, I'd be Warriors all the way on this. But man, I feel like the Warriors can win. I just don't think they will. I don't think they can win 2 more in a row without Durant playing.
Here's my theory, Dave. I think if it gets to Game 7, I would have a hell of a time not rooting for the Warriors, right? I think it will be over in Game 6. But I don't know. I mean, my
You're
head
gonna
is
bet
telling me
against
it's
the
going to be the Raptors, but like I've kind of learned to not discount the Warriors over the last few years. So
You're going to bet against the Warriors on their final game in Oakland ever.
I mean,
they already lost 2 there, so I don't know.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
I don't know. I think the Oracle effect might be overstated. In fact, they weren't really that good as a home team this season to begin with.
True, but
No.
it's the last one.
Yeah, and
I
it's
don't
a
know.
benefit to them going back home. That's why the structure of this made Game 5. I mean, the must-win term is thrown around way too easily, but the Raptors, if they do lose this series, will kick themselves forever because of what they did in Game 5 on their home floor. Because they had every opportunity to win that game and failed.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Got every borderline call, too. There was 2 calls in Game 5 where I texted both of you. It was like, are you sure about that one?
Yeah, he's like,
Kawhi's
are
back.
you sure? And we're like, yeah, we are sure that it was travel or whatever the
Yeah.
case was. We don't know why it was called.
Yeah.
I do think, what is the rule for offensive interference? Is it any part of the ball is over the cylinder?
Mm-hmm.
Then that was the right call, although it
Yeah.
was about... I was telling Chris, the problem is the intent of the rule is so, like, you can't just go over the rim and, like, push it back in.
Mm-hmm.
When it's so close to being outside of the rim, it, like, the intent of the rule no longer matters, so you're like, I mean, it is the rule, but it really should have counted. It's a moot point. They won, so
Yeah,
that's fine.
It's hard for me, though. It feels like those 2 calls are two calls that get called every single time. The travel gets called every single time in the regular season. The offensive interference does not get called during the regular season anytime. Or any other basketball game you ever watch. If you watch that putback dunk Boogie had, that's a dunk. Nobody questions it. And had they not called it, I don't think anybody would have questioned it.
Well, that was the issue that we talked about when we were watching it here was if the call on the floor had been basket good and they had to overturn it conclusively, would they have been able to?
I don't think so.
I don't think so, because you could sit there and it was uncanny. I haven't really seen something like this in a while, where from one angle it looked like it was clearly interference, and from another angle it looked like it was clearly off the rim.
No kidding. I saw that.
You know, and it sucks too. Like, so you had a Draymond backcourt, and
Which
man,
was?
they just had every opportunity to win. Here's the problem, though. This is what we say, Chris and I especially. I think you do this too, Dave, but. We'll have a player who like shoots where it's not usually their range, or they're not usually high percentage, and we're like, you know what, we'll take that. Keep shooting that. You made it this time, maybe even make it the next time, but like that's the shot we want you taking. And I feel like Kawhi, he scored 10 straight points, but then when it really mattered, he started settling for those long threes or long jump shots, and it's like, and he's missed them. And he missed them, and that cost him the game ultimately, because it was bad, low percentage shots, long rebounds. Like it was bad.
Yep. And the Warriors did a great job on him defensively those last 2 minutes too. They doubled the crap out of him, and he had to pass out of it like on the final possession. It was just good basketball all around, I think.
I mean, Kyle Lowry is a choke artist, and I know Draymond got a tip on that one, but like. Yeah. If I'm the Warriors, I'm going to make him beat us, not Kawhi.
Yep.
And that's what they did.
It's the same thing with like Damian Lillard. He's hit those two noteworthy series-winning shots, and he probably shouldn't have had a chance at either. No, let anybody else on the floor beat you. Like C.J. McCollum is a great player, but I'd much rather have him taking the last shot than Damian Lillard.
Oh, yeah.
Kyle Lowry is a good player. Not great. Good.
Yep.
A perfectly fine player. Can make open threes. But if it's a choice between him and Kawhi Leonard, give the ball to Kyle. And that's why I was really impressed with both Iguodala and Green on that last play. Their defense was stellar. Iguodala doubled at the perfect time, seeing the floor spacing around him. Gasol and Lowry were right on top of each other for no apparent reason, so that somebody could kind of guard both of them, and he could spring out and trap Kawhi and make him pass, and he did. And then Draymond recovering to get a piece of that shot is kind of ludicrous.
Incredible. Draymond had two amazing plays, I think. That block at the end was fantastic. Yep. And also the pass he made to set up the go-ahead three for Klay Thompson. Any other time, Draymond would have shot that ball and had every reason to shoot it. He was wide open. No one was around him. But as soon as that pass came to Draymond, he fired it over to Klay.
Pocket pass, quickly. Just fast as it needed to be.
And it's such great court awareness of like, he's a better three-point shooter than me. He has to shoot this ball, not me. Yeah. And it was such a good team play.
I love the pace he gets on his chest passes. Maybe the best in the league. Because he can. It's that half a second makes so much of a difference at the NBA level. It's the difference between a defense maybe having a chance to rotate and not. It forced Kawhi to go full-on sprint. Klay used an up fake. He blew by, and he had all the time in the world to shoot that three.
Yeah, you want to see the difference it makes. Look at the last play of Kyle Lowry. I mean, what did Draymond get? Just a fingertip on that? It was enough. It wasn't even close.
Yep, exactly. But,
cool game, and it was weird. I was not rooting for the Raptors, especially after the shit their fans pulled when KD got hurt.
That's so disgusting.
But I will say it would have been cool to see a finals winning shot, especially on their home floor.
I agree.
But that's the only downside. It was like this was a potentially historic game. It was still a really fascinating one and the best one of the playoffs, probably by far. But
I mean, the thing is, so going into Game 6, I was starting to want to give a prediction. So here's how it could go. I'm reminded of Portland versus the Suns in 2011.
10.
I guess it was the 2010 season, but it was anyways.
2010 playoffs.
Yeah. And the Brandon Roy emotional boost game. So Brandon Roy comes back. They win. They play great. And he plays the next game. So it's not even like Kevin Durant, where Kevin Durant comes in, they get a boost, I think, at first from him being there. And then I think, honestly, they were angered by the fans, and they had every right to be. And they finished that game off. So now is this going to be... Are they going to do what Portland did, where they played well from that boost, but then the next game they returned to earth and the Suns didn't lose again for the rest of that series? Or is it going to be enough for them to maintain it and get to a Game 7 where I think they can win?
That's an apt comparison, I think, because there was one team that was playing clearly better, that series, and I think the Raptors have been clearly better this series overall.
Yeah, but the Warriors just make plays when they need to.
They have so far. Yeah. It's the Raptors in the game 4. The Raptors seem to just score every single time they needed a bucket. Game 3, I think, was the same type of thing. You kept waiting for that Golden State run to come, where they were going to close a 10-point gap in 2 minutes, and it never really happened because the Raptors just kept scoring. And so I just don't know if the Warriors are going to be able to hold that off if they need to make a run at the end of Game 6. So
this is not a sentence that I imagined saying at any point, really. But for the Warriors to win the title, they need DeMarcus Cousins to be something resembling his all-star self.
Mm-hmm.
There's no other solution now. With Looney potentially out, we don't know for sure, but the dude was grimacing on the court for what felt like 8 straight minutes as he gutted it out, and props to him.
Yeah.
But it's hard to imagine him coming back either. If Looney is also gone, I'm not going to sit here and say that's a bigger deal than Kevin Durant, because that's stupid and that's ESPN bullshit. But both of them being out means that they no longer have their one switchable big in the lineup. And the Raptors were attacking DeMarcus down the stretch. I think Cousins actually had a pretty good game overall, but he was disastrous in the last minute and a half. An offensive foul, a turnover, missed free throws, and bad defense when he got isolated on Lowry.
Yep.
He cannot be doing that. They cannot have even just a quarter of a game where he is a non-factor, if not a negative, because he has done that in the 2 games they lost at Oracle before, and they can't afford it now.
To me, that's an interesting segue. Is that, like, what is it? Boogie's just still out of shape because he kept getting injured? Is it his Achilles injury? He's just not back to the same person he was?
I've heard that, like, a player, after not playing, basically, he missed a lot of the season, and then he missed most of the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you put someone back on a tricycle, and it's like, they know how to ride a tricycle, and then you put the tricycle on a freeway. And you're like, okay, now you got to figure out the speed of navigating on the freeway. And I think that's what the NBA Finals are like. So he's back, but he's not even learning how to play pickup. It's not even playoffs. It's the finals. And I think that that's responsible. In a way, a lot of credit to him for even playing as good as he has. Mm-hmm. But that's tough.
Yeah, it is.
I think he practiced once before he played in the finals.
Wow.
After being out for a month, and like Shaun said, even more time at the start of the season. And let's be honest, he was never in the best shape to begin with. It wasn't like he was going to come back and be a track meet guy. He was never in phenomenal shape even before he got hurt in New Orleans. But you compound all those things and you start searching him out for switches, and he's going to look not so great. But he cannot do the same crap he was doing. He can't be lunging, he can't be reaching in. He has to stay in front of people, and he has to be able to make shots.
I just think, again, my prediction is Game 6 is not going to be super close. I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means. I just think Warriors didn't play that great. Neither did the Raptors, but I think it's going to be not that close of a Game 6. If it is and the Warriors pull it off, I think they have it. Even back in Toronto, I just think, like, it's so funny when you're looking at, okay, they're down 3-1. Man, that's 3 games. When you get to a Game 7, all the
nothing else
odds,
matters.
it's one game now. Who's going to win the next game?
Yeah.
And I would take the Warriors, man. So
I feel like Game 6, the Raptors are going to come out with all the fire that they possibly can have, and Steph and Clay are just going to have to be the steadying force. They're going to have to score a vast majority of the points between the two of them and keep Kawhi in check. Not like they're going to hold him under 20 points or something like that, but they're just going to have to kind of limit the big shots he hits.
Well, and make him work for it, because then you saw, I think he got tired at the end of the last game.
Which leads to the infamous timeout by Nick Nurse.
I was about to say, do you call that time? So a lot of the takes on the radio were like, do you call that timeout? You killed your own momentum. And I was like, I feel like Kawhi wanted that timeout. I think he was gassed. Somebody said make him miss a shot first before you call that timeout. And, maybe that's fair, but
keep in mind too, we only sort of talked about this live because I was curious when they came back from commercial and went away again. He called 2 timeouts, not even just one. He burned both timeouts because he was going to lose both because of the 3-minute rule. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. I'm not saying it was wrong to call 2 as opposed to 1, but it completely stopped everything. By the time both timeouts were finished, you were basically 5 minutes later to where it was a whole new game.
Yeah.
And that's hard. Like if Kawhi had come out and looked great, you'd be like, what a genius timeout. He gave him the exact rest he needed to finish the game. Well, it didn't work out that way, but
I think a lot of people's complaint and the reason they're hammering on Nick Nurse so much is that the feeling watching that game was Kawhi scores 10 straight points. The Warriors can't hit a shot. This game is over, is what it felt like.
Yep.
It absolutely felt like this game is over. The Raptors made their run. This game's over. Then the timeout was called, and the Warriors hit 3 straight threes. And it's like, oh, I guess it wasn't over.
yeah.
It was almost like Steve Kerr called the timeout. You know what I mean?
Right, and that's a spot where you would think he might, but that's not how it went down.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're Steve Kerr, you're probably like, oh,
thanks.
Sweet.
All right.
I appreciate that. So I think that timeout thing got a little overplayed. I get his reasoning for calling it since he wasn't going to get him anyway, and he could get a bit of rest for his players. But the feeling of it sure was like he just put a halt to all the championship momentum they had.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's a Kawhi problem more than it is a Nick Nurse problem. And again, he was great down the stretch, but as you mentioned before, sort of overdid it. And so if the problem was he was tired, then stash him in the corner for a possession.
Mm-hmm.
You know, let Lowry run a pick and roll with Gasol or something and attack Cousins like you had been earlier in the fourth quarter with success, and have Kawhi not have to take over for an entire possession. So he just gets that slight breather. And if that position doesn't go well, then you take the timeout and get Kawhi rest so we can come back at it.
Yep.
But stopping your own momentum, to me, is just the dumbest idea. It really is.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know for sure that it cost them a championship, but I remember looking at that screen when the Raptors went up 6 and saying, wow, the Raptors just won the championship. And then the timeout was called.
That seemed to be the prevailing thought, and the Warriors had other ideas.
Wouldn't you kill yourself if you're a Raptors fan?
Well,
I'm not saying if they lose this in Game 7.
If you were one of the...
There's series where people are up 3-1, and I know Golden State. They were up 3-1, and you're like, it's not the same as like a series. Like you win one game, you've won the whole championship, and you just can't get the one win. That's crazy to me.
Well, if you're one of those Raptors fans that were cheering for Kevin Durant when he got hurt, you might want to go kill yourself.
Maybe it's good anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If that had been a Game 7, though, would you? If you're a Raptors fan, forgetting the KD stuff, just, you lose in that kind of fashion. And that's a Game 7 and you lose a title that way? Is that just like, all right, that's it, I'm done?
That's a call into work the next day, I can't move type of day, I think.
Was kind of like, I'm not even necessarily rooting for the Raptors. I talked to you guys about this. Like, Golden State is showing a tremendous amount of heart, and they're playing like they're the underdog. And, I mean, they in some ways, they kind of are now. And I respect the hell out of what they're doing. I don't know. I felt like upset though still when they lost, like in this way of like that. It's like a gross feeling of like, man, Toronto, like you're so ready, you're right there. But good for Golden State if they win the next 2 games. Damn,
I found myself upset last night when the Warriors were losing, thinking like, man, this series is gonna be over. I don't feel like the Warriors got I won't say fair shot because of course they did, and if you start talking about fairness with the Warriors, like that's not even a conversation you can have.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just didn't feel like it was right. Almost, it didn't feel like that it didn't play out the way it should have. I guess is the best way to say.
So speaking of that, Kevin Durant, I feel like if you watch a replay, like you can almost see like the waves, like ripple under his skin, like that's.
You can see his Achilles tendon flapping around by his calf muscle.
It's not good. It's in fact real bad.
No.
So they talked about, God, who was it? Was it Kendrick Perkins? Some NBA player who's friends with Durant was basically like, dude, don't play. Like, don't do this. It's not worth the risk. And Durant responded with something to the effect of, do you hear what people are saying? Do you hear how they're talking about me? Like, I have to do this. And I think in a way that's really sad, but I also think you have a player, say what you want about him, everything leading up till now, people have different opinions, but like he sacrificed his body to try to be there for his team, to try to be there for his city. I feel like at the very least he's rewritten the narrative to all but the staunchest, like narrow-minded people. Would you guys agree with that?
I think he converted a lot of people. Absolutely. It is amazing how quickly people changed their tune on him. Which 3 days ago, they were like, man, Kevin Durant, the Warriors are better without him. Man, he's fine. He just doesn't want to play because he doesn't want to get hurt. And all of a sudden comes in, plays amazing, does get hurt, oh man, he's a real warrior. They shouldn't have let him play out there. He wanted to play so bad. It's like, you pick a.
I know, and it sucks. It does suck, but that's unfortunately the way of the world. But I think, and maybe the narrative doesn't matter that much, but it mattered enough to him to want to play. So I think at least he's silenced.
You have a chance to win a championship. Of course you're going to play if you physically can. I feel like anyone is going to play in that game as long as they're physically able.
I think it speaks more to his character that they don't need this title. I mean, obviously you want to win the title, no matter what the situation is, however many you have, it doesn't matter. But it's not like this is Toronto's situation where they've never won one, and this is the first one. You're like, man, we got to pull out all the stops and do anything. Durant's been in 2 times Finals MVP. He's got 2 rings now. He did not need to play last night, but he did. If there's any mistake that was made here by either the Warriors or Durant or both, I think it was just in their handling of everything up to this point. Because it became a day-to-day phenomenon, it was essentially just, all right, well, it's now game 3. Is Durant playing? Okay, let's check in with him. Did he practice? Yes, no, blah, blah, blah. It was a talking point constantly because they did not communicate well enough what his injury was, the severity of it, and the likeliness of him coming back. And that probably put pressure on Durant because he internalizes that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. I wonder how much of that was their intention of trying to keep the other team on their toes of like, you better prepare for Durant. He might be back.
I don't think so because I saw people saying that, but like they were declaring him not playing the morning shoot around before the next day's game.
Yeah.
So I mean, how much were they really hiding from them? You know.
And it sucks because it's a final, and you want to win. Obviously, you don't want to leave it on the table. But like you sit these next few games, and whether the Warriors can pull it off or not. And then you have like how many months of the off season where you can really let that heal, and then you prevent what is an injury that could take him out the whole next season, if not more. And you were so close, and I mean, it's hard. I would want to play, right? But that doesn't mean it was the right decision.
Yeah. Well, I guess if I'm in his position, I feel like you have to trust the team doctors. That's the only people you can trust in this situation. They're doing the MRIs. They're the ones examining you, watching you play, watching you cut. They're the experts on this. And if they give you medical clearance to play, you got to feel confident in playing.
Yeah.
I feel like it. So I don't know. I don't know that you can blame anyone. I don't know if it's anybody's fault. I know Bob Meyer was trying to take blame for it after game 5, but I don't know.
But like the thing is, this is like, what sucks is there's obviously the direct correlation. It's not like he hurt his other leg or like his arm. And it's a fluke. It's like they always relate your calf muscle to your Achilles. And when you hurt your calf, it's like, you got to take care of that because the Achilles is next. And that's like textbook. And then it happened. That's horrible.
Yeah, it is too bad. It's just, it's sad all around because I would have loved to see how this played out with Durant in there. I feel bad for the guy in the sense of how much flack he's taken from the public. And now the fact he is probably going to be out next year. He's still probably going to get a max contract no matter where he wants to go. I don't think that's going to change it, but he's going to miss an entire year, and he's 30 now. Yeah. So he's getting older.
Yeah, and everybody wants to find somebody to blame. Is it the fans' fault? Is it the Durant's fault? Is it the doctor's fault? And it's like, it's just kind of an unfortunate thing. Why do we have to say whose fault it is? I think
it's a confluence of crappy things. That's it.
Yeah. I also thought it was the media's fault, and I thought that was
funny. That was the other one.
You guys wouldn't stop asking about him, so you pressured him into playing.
No.
I mean, okay, it's their job to ask about him, but sure.
I think the NBA Finals probably pressured him into playing. It would pressure me into playing.
Adam Silver pressured him.
With a gun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Dave, you brought up free agency, and I think you're right. I don't know what the injury changes. To go to my point earlier, it might change his... The only thing it might change is it might increase his odds of staying with Golden State because he kind of changed that narrative, and it's no longer like, do we need him? Do we want him? So he might be more inclined to stay now that maybe a certain issue is off his back. I don't know, though. He's probably still gone. I think if the injury changed anything, it's probably that. He's still going to get max no matter where he goes.
So the biggest thing I heard today that I agreed with as far as what changed is that if Durant was planning on going to, say, New York or New Jersey, someplace that has 2 max slots available, the plan might have been Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant were going to go to the same place. Does Kyrie want to go to the dumpster fire that is New York right now without KD for a year and waste a year of his career playing with scrubs with no one that's on the Knicks right now? I don't know. It's an interesting thing to think about.
It could change the line. That's a good point. It could. I don't think it's changed a lot for Durant himself. It could change the landscape, though.
Yeah, to me, the question with Durant is, does he pick up his player option or not now? Because up until this point, the answer was pretty much no. Whether he was staying with Golden State or not, he was going to get a 5-year deal from somebody as his probably last big hurrah for the max deal. Now, because if he is going to be out the next year, I don't know. It'd be awful hard to take $31 million off the table for a season you're not going to play anyways. And then that means that he's a free agent next year, which to Dave's point, then misses the timing on a lot of stuff. And it also has repercussions beyond free agency, because now it's like, okay, if the Knicks do want to go after Kyrie Irving, are they going to be more aggressive going after, say, Anthony Davis? They no longer can have Durant as an option, so where are they going to turn to if they want a second star alongside Kyrie Irving? It won't be Klay Thompson. They can't get Kemba Walker. They're both point guards. Where else do you go?
Yeah,
Kawhi? They're not going to get Kawhi. Kawhi's not going to fucking New York.
No, not a chance.
And you know what else is like, if Golden State keeps Durant, what are the repercussions for that? Does that mean they can't keep Klay, or can they?
Can.
Like, how does that work?
They can.
They've got the bird rights, so they can keep all of them. They can keep everybody that's on the team currently, basically.
They'd be paying out the nose for luxury tax, and they'd have to take a real long, hard look at Draymond Green next offseason.
Yep.
But, of course, it's just a question of which Draymond Green you're getting. If he's not going to be 25 pounds overweight and out of shape, I think you can make a case that he deserves to get paid too. If we've seen him in the playoffs, he's been as important to them as anybody.
Especially if one of them is hurt. If one of the big other guys are hurt.
But it's also exposed a weakness in the Warriors, where even if they had all 4 of them at times, like they struggled in that series against the Clippers until they finally turned the corner. So the question is, if you keep all 4, even if you can, what happens to your depth? They've had a hard time having enough depth now before Klay and Draymond have gotten on new deals, and with a slight discount from Durant. So if they're all getting paid even more and Steph's extension's already kicked in, do you have any bench at all? Is it all just like, veterans exceptions and stuff for guys that can't play?
Yep. Or just, they can't run Iguodala and Livingston out there for the rest of their lives. No. They're pretty much on the downswing.
I feel like Livingston's done after this year, and Iggy's got maybe one more year left.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
So I don't know what it means for free agency, because, again, we've seen both the Nets and Knicks posturing to make this position for themselves before anything's even possible. They've both opened up this space well in advance of when free agency opens, and now look what's happened.
So I love the Nets trade. The Nets traded Allen Crabbe and 2 first-round picks, essentially for a second-round pick, just to free up their cap space.
Just to make cap space. And now for what? Yeah,
I think they could have waited a little bit, maybe, but...
Who is going to get... Let's go through this. Anthony Davis.
He's not a free agent this year yet.
No, I know, but still.
He's going to the Lakers.
You think so?
I think David Griffin loves 3-team deals, so I think to get what he wants, New Orleans to get out of the trade, he'll find some third team, and maybe it's Phoenix. I don't know. To kind of finagle things in a way that gets that to work, because that's where Davis wants to go. Now, why Anthony Davis is so hell-bent on going there a year early and ruining their own roster, I don't know. But
aren't they supposed to be able to... the Lakers should be able to sign him next year to a free agent deal if they just wait, right?
In theory.
And not have to get the roster.
But then anybody else gets to make a pitch, too. If they trade for him, then they have the right to give him the bigger extension, the supermax, blah, blah, blah. So it gets a little bit different then. But in theory, there's nothing stopping them.
Let's go over this deal where Anthony Davis comes to L.A., and let's say the one where the Suns get Ball. Because no matter how this trade looks, the Lakers are clearing out like all their core. What does that team look like? You have 2 of the most prolific players. And, you were talking about what does the rest of the Warriors bench look like in that turn. Look at this team. It's a bunch of garbage. It's LeBron and AD surrounded by trash.
Yeah, if they trade away, Ingram, Ball, and
Kuzma
or something like that. Yeah. And then potentially their number 4 overall pick as well. So they don't even get their rookie in there. So then they've got LeBron, Anthony Davis, and
Josh Hart.
Don't forget Rajon Rondo.
He's a free agent. He can re-sign, but he's a free agent this year.
All their weirdo players are all on 1-year deals.
Don't forget Lance Stevenson.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's it's a supreme talent, and LeBron led a team out of the East that wasn't a whole lot better than that, but this is the West, and he's a little older. I don't know.
It showcases just how bad that Ivica Zubac deal was when they traded him to the Clippers to get like Reggie Bullock or whatever the hell that deal was to get a little bit more 3-point shooting and a run that didn't matter because they didn't make the playoffs. Like that was another pretty decent young player who showed some flashes that would have been nice to have around either for a Davis trade or for whatever's left afterwards. And the Lakers just kind of ran themselves into the ground on this and ultimately got nothing out of it. Maybe they still will, but that was a disastrous couple of months for them.
Yeah, it's crazy how much the Lakers have just kind of screwed themselves. It feels like.
As a Suns fan, would you rather see the Dinwiddie trade or the Ball trade?
Dinwiddie,
if we can swing it. I mean, are you willing to give up number 6 for Dinwiddie?
yes.
Yeah.
Fair. Yeah, I can agree with that.
I kind of lean. I don't know a lot about Dinwiddie though, but I like Ball's defense. If they have comparable court vision, and maybe you think Dinwiddie's is better than Ball's passing and court vision, but
I don't, but I think his defense is as good as Ball's.
Oh, okay.
And his offense is way better.
Yep. Yeah, I'm in agreement. I'd probably rather have Dinwiddie. And if Kyrie does end up going up to Brooklyn, then I think it very well could happen. They got to free up some space.
Yeah, and they can't be carrying Irving and D'Angelo Russell and Spencer Dinwiddie with LeVert and Joe Harris. And, like, there's too many guards in that backcourt. They got rid of Crabbe, but even so, like, everything else there is still way too packed.
In my new season of 2K, Durant and Porzingis signed with the Suns, and we're pretty good. Since that's not real life, what do you think? So if we have Dinwiddie, Booker, and Ayton as like the core, and then Oubre, sure. What is our outlook next season? Do we make the playoffs with that team?
Sign Julius Randle, make the playoffs.
I can agree with that. I think we could. That is a huge. I mean, especially we keep Tyler Johnson on there as like the backup point guard. I think that's a serviceable lineup. Julius Randle, I think, will be a huge boost to the team. Overall, I think we've got a real shot at improving. I don't know for sure playoffs, but we'll be fighting for it at least.
Well, it's funny because I've seen people be like, "Oh, I don't know about Julius Randle. His defense really bad," and I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't want to replace the defensive juggernaut that is Dragon Bender." You're right. It's like, come on, people are crazy sometimes.
Yeah, it's people saying. I mean, obviously this was never going to actually happen, but people saying are the Suns fans, crazy Suns fans. No, I don't want Kevin Durant, man. I don't want that guy around this. He's a cancer. He's a snake. It's like, what?
I would pay,
I still sign him.
just for what it's worth, the full max to Durant, not knowing what the injury is right now. It's worth it to me just for the chance.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely it is. I'd offer him the max today, tomorrow, any day of the week. It's like, dude, you want to come here? How much money can we pay you? We'll pay you that.
They're like, he's never going to play again. I'm like, still do it just in case.
Just in case.
Even if he loses some of his athleticism from this, I mean, maybe he's not the best player in the league anymore, but he still has the height, he still has the length, he still has the footwork, and he still has maybe the, I don't know, third or fourth best jumper in the game.
That if Russell Westbrook, when he loses his athleticism, unless he makes significant changes to his game, he's going to fall off a cliff. Durant is, I mean, his game translates so well. I mean, what is he going to lose? He's already 6'11", like, still barely anyone's going to be able to block that shot.
Yep.
So
and he can just, Durant could go into full old man at playing pickup ball mode where he just kind of posts up and just shoots over you.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be so hard to guard him even as he gets older. And I was kind of thinking like, cool, Durant might be the first or second best player overall. And after this injury, maybe he's the 9th best player overall. Cool. You can still max him.
Yeah. And I don't even think it's that low, but still, I mean, your point. Stands.
Well, to some extent, it reminds me of Dirk in that he can get his jumper whenever he wants.
Yeah.
He was the most efficient mid-range scorer in the game this season, and it wasn't close. He puts up numbers from that range that people dream about, and it's the thing that would like break the Rocket system because you're not supposed to be putting up those kind of numbers from there. If he gets the ball at the elbow, whether or not he has an Achilles, who's going to stop him?
Yeah, it's true.
That's what I'm saying. It's like he'll never play again. I'm like, well, what if we roll him out with a cast? And they're like, well, you know what? And I'm like, well, but still, I still think that'd be good. He just one foots it.
That's what Dirk did for his whole career, just shooting off one foot.
Yeah, exactly. Give him a roller skate on one leg.
I am sick and tired of Suns fans finding the negatives in every single thing that comes along. I really am. And I understand it to some extent. I'm not saying it should be like, oh, this player's available? Yeah, I want him unquestionably. But it's like every single time. I don't know what people expect. The whole idea was that we were supposed to be like accumulating assets and whatnot so that we could trade for some star when he became available. Why do stars become available? Because they're disgruntled. They're unhappy. They get injured. They're not perfect. Because if they were, you'd be only signing them as a free agent. That's it. So you're going to have to accept some warts or flaws with the players that are going to come to this situation right now.
And you're talking about Phoenix, not a small market, but not, New York. And when you're comparing us to like LA, New York, those big markets, you're talking about the difference of like hundreds of millions of dollars in endorsements and your brand. So it's not just, I don't want to go play in Phoenix, like they're all Republican or whatever. It's like they're leaving money on the table if they go play with us. So, I mean, you're absolutely right. What?
Are they anymore? Like, I feel like, I mean, Kevin Durant wasn't missing out on endorsements when he was in Oklahoma City at all.
I think he, he's bigger now for Golden State than he was for Oklahoma City. And you're also talking about the number 2 best player in the game, maybe number 1. So it's a little different.
But I do think the Supermax is not working as intended. It's really only being taken by players that are phasing out of the prime of their career. And players that are not, like an Anthony Davis or Kevin Durant a couple of years ago when he joined the Warriors, are looking at that extra $20 to $30 million and saying, this isn't enough to keep me from going to a situation that I would prefer.
Yep.
So either it's handcuffing teams with bad contracts, or it's not preventing free agents from leaving. And the whole point of the Supermax was to entice people to stick with their original teams. It's not doing it. All it's doing is creating these contracts that are going to price themselves out of the CBA. And case in point of this, and God, I hope this isn't the case, is Devin Booker, who I love, but he should not be getting paid that much 4 years into his career. But that's the structure that's created now. Luckily, he's on the right side of his prime and not a John Wall, but even so, it's a huge concern for teams now because either you keep somebody at way too high a price and they don't end up being good, or they want out anyways and it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a tough situation when the players have that ability to just be like, you know what, I don't need that $20 million, which is crazy to think about, but that's kind of the position they're in. It's like, cool, I get 200 or 220. Is it that big of a difference for them at that point?
Yeah. I mean, how much money is LeBron going to make just from having switched to LA over Cleveland? Just for the fact that he's going to have better endorsements and whatnot from LA. Players are already making, like the top stars, already making more outside of the game than they are in any contract because of the salary cap. So LeBron probably looks at that $20 million he could get from Cleveland offering him a max and goes, yeah, but I'll make like $60 million more in LA. So peace.
Yeah, who cares? Yeah. And it's not a problem you can fix either from an NBA standpoint.
Yeah.
So
I also want to circle back to one other thing too, which is when the Suns fans hate on people. One of the complaints I see about D'Angelo Russell is like, well, I mean, he likes Booker, they're friends, he would be an explosive, it would be a great backcourt, but like they're not going to defend anybody. And at this point, it's like we just need talent. If Booker and Russell score 60 points a night and give up 58, then I don't fucking care.
We already don't defend anyone.
Yeah.
So, like, what is the issue?
I agree. Yeah, the fact we're beggars in this chase, and beggars can't be choosers.
Yeah.
It's like we need talent. We need someone who can play. If we can get Dinwiddie, Julius Randle, D'Angelo Russell,
Ricky Rubio,
Patrick Beverly, Ricky Rubio at this point, like we just need talent. We need somebody who can actually play basketball at an NBA level.
If we could get D'Angelo Russell and Julius Randle, that's playoff bound, right? Like you would sure, and a new coach.
Yes.
A coach who's not like a Russian, like, robot. Like, sorry, Igor.
And you know me, I'm notoriously bullish when it comes to the Suns' playoff chances the last 8 to 10 years. When we've made season predictions, I'm very rarely on the high side of stuff.
Yeah.
Bearish.
Yeah, bullish is high. Those two are, with the rest of the core, are a playoff team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I don't know if
I
they're
think so.
7-8 seed, maybe. It depends on what else happens in the West, Durant included. But, like, that's a playoff team. I have no doubt.
And the fact that the idea of thinking about, hey, these two guys can help us get to the playoffs, sign me up. I don't care if we're toiling around for the 8 seed for a couple years. Let's just get there and see what happens.
I'm almost so desperate. I think I talked about this. I would go with like Chris Paul. And I like, that's stupid. That is an idiot move. And I'm like, you know what? If he gets us a chance at the playoffs, I'm almost like, let's roll the dice. I don't even care anymore.
What about John Wall? We should probably trade for him, right?
Yeah, John Wall. Let's get them both. That way, if one gets hurt, we're only paying $50 million for the backup.
So I I don't think the Suns are going to be huge players in free agency. I think we might get a chance at signing Julius Randle. We might have a chance at trading for Spencer Dinwiddie potentially, but I don't see that we're going to have anything big coming our way this year.
We don't have any money.
Can we, just out of curiosity, can we even get D'Angelo Russell and Julius Randle, and Oubre?
Not necessarily Russell, because the way we would get Russell is if the Nets basically declined his restricted free agency status and he became an unrestricted free agent. So you couldn't sign both him and Randall without clearing all of Warren and Jackson and Oubre off the books. Mm-hmm. But like a Dinwiddie or Alonzo Ball could work because you get them on the you can trade for them, and then I forget the ordering, but you get one on the roster and then sign the other, and at that point you can go over. And same with Oubre. Like if they can reach an agreement with him, they can do that after the first couple of days of free agency, sign anybody else they want, and then use him to go over the cap.
So ideally in this world, we're not going to get probably anyone, but it would be D'Angelo Russell and then whoever, and then next would be Ball or Dinwiddie and Julius Randle, right?
Well,
that would be...
not necessarily, because if we end up trading the draft pick for Ball or Dinwiddie, we have to trade that before the draft. That's going to be how we have to do it, pretty much. But we're giving up the cap hold of our draft pick for Ball or Dinwiddie's cap hold, essentially, and they don't get paid that much.
I guess what I'm saying is it better go with D'Angelo Russell and question mark. No, I'm not even saying the draft. I'm just saying whoever. Maybe it's Bender again at the 4. Because that backcourt is so explosive, or do we go with maybe a little bit lesser of a point guard, but then we get Julius Randle paired with him?
I think you want to get that route because it's probably the only way you fill both spots with a player of that caliber at the 4.
So we don't think Russell is so good that he justifies not filling every position.
Well, if there was a good potential power forward pick, like if Wendell Carter Jr. was in this draft, or somebody we could draft at 6, like if we had the 6th pick from last year's draft, I'd feel way better about it because there's people maybe who could fill in at power forward in that 6 with that 6th pick this year.
They're saying the Suns are real high on Cutler
Culver.
Yeah. What do you think about that? You know more about I don't give a shit about the draft. I stopped caring a long time ago, years ago.
I mean, Jared Culver was a Texas Tech guard. He played in the national championship game. He was their best player. I think he could be really good. He's another wing, though. He can handle a ball decently, but he's a wing, and we don't need a wing.
But what if Booker and Oubre and Jackson and Warren get hurt?
Cool. Well, then our season's fucked anyway, so who cares?
What do you mean, like the end of last season?
Yeah, pretty much.
So we already saw that reality. It was bad. Although we did beat that one. We had the one win. Was the Pelicans we beat with just Josh Jackson and friends?
Yeah, scored like 40 points.
That sounds like
whatever the third to last game of the season was. Yeah, I didn't watch it. It was the one we were talking about going to potentially. We didn't because the plans didn't work out, and they won somehow. That's what put us in a tie for second worst record that we lost. Luckily, that pick didn't end up haunting us because both those teams kind of dropped. But that could have been a disaster.
Yeah.
And that team was a disaster every game except that one. I don't know what happened in that one game.
Yeah.
We were awful outside of it.
Well, it got the Pelicans the number 1 pick, so.
So when is the draft? It's soon.
June 20th.
It's really soon.
A week from today.
Yes. A week from today, yep.
So maybe this is the last point here. What do you guys want to see with that? I think I know. But
trade the pick.
Trade it, yeah.
Don't care who's available. I mean, if Zion falls to 6, keep the pick. I'm fine with keeping the pick then.
I mean, I gotta say, I'd say trade the pick if Dinwiddie's available. If I want to trade the pick for a point guard, basically. But I gotta say, in watching, because I do watch a bit of college basketball, Garland from Vanderbilt looks like he has Dame Lillard tendencies in him. He's a great shot, good open court. He didn't play a lot in college, but he's got good skill. Kobe White from North Carolina, I think, is solid. I don't think he's going to be that good, but some people are really high on him. There's potential there, but it's kind of a crapshoot. Now you might get just as good of a pick at 11 as you're going to get at 6. So it's really tough to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good with trading the pick. I mean, unless there's no takers and we end up underselling it, and then okay, keep it. But what do you think about trading the number 6 pick and Jackson for the number 1 pick?
I would do that every day of the week, but also David Griffin will get fired. He just got hired, but he'd get fired for making that trade.
Yeah,
I've also seen people trying to package the pick to get off of Tyler Johnson's contract, and those people are idiots.
Yeah,
that space, there's only a couple of teams that could accept that much of a contract into their cap space anyways, but that space doesn't do us any good. Even if that does give us a max slot, what are we going to do with it?
I mean, if Kevin Durant came out tomorrow and said, "I'm going to the Phoenix Suns," then yeah, okay, let's do that.
Yeah,
we should probably do
you,
that.
Then you make the space for it however you do. But then you're going to be trading at a disadvantage. But then it doesn't matter. Like, who needs the 6th pick if you have Kevin Durant? But that's not going to happen. And as such, you don't. People are like, well, we could like stretch Johnson and make some more space. I'm like, no.
Screws you down the road.
And this is not the 2000s where an expiring contract was actually extremely valued. Tyler Johnson is a $20 million, 19 expiring contract. That's a lot of money coming off the books. And 10 years ago, that would have been a huge trade chip. Now it's almost the opposite. And case in point is the deal the Nets just did. But the window for doing those deals is now. Now, we made fun of them because they were going after Durant too early, but the fact remains teams are going to want to have their own abilities with those draft picks. They become way less valuable once you've already taken a player with them.
Yep.
Especially once you get to like the mid-first round and beyond, because then, it's kind of a crapshoot. If somebody was going to trade Zion after he was drafted, everybody like, yeah, okay, sure, let's go get Zion. So to trade that pick, the only other scenario I can see is them moving down. If they have a player that they like a lot in that 6 to kind of 12 range, like Dave mentioned, it kind of drops off a bit. If they can move down, still get a player they like, and maybe get another like low first-round pick or something out of it, I'd be fine with that.
There's a rumor I heard, and I don't know how much it is, but the Hawks really like Culver that you were just talking about. And so if he is possibly available at 6, I would totally be willing to trade with the Hawks for 8 and 10. If they were to do that to move up to get their guy that they want, I would do that trade in a heartbeat, I think.
And the Hawks might, because they have 3 picks in the first 17.
They have 17. Yeah, they have 8, 10, and 17.
So maybe you don't get 8 and 10, but 8 and 17 I would do too.
To move down 2 spots, I would.
Yeah, and they get to keep 6 and 10 out of it still.
Exactly.
I mean, seems reasonable.
Yeah. Yep. So there's just options. I mean, then you want to free up cap space, and you have 17 to deal somebody out with, maybe. Then you have that idea. But the problem is the draft just doesn't have that surefire crapshoot. Is that surefire guy that you just know is going to be good at 6, unlike last year's draft, which I feel was really good. So it's going to be really tough for the Suns this year. But if they can get their couple guys, if they can trade for Dinwiddie, I'll feel a lot better.
Yeah.
Well, I have a lot to bring up next episode because Michelle will undoubtedly be gone again at some point in the summer. We can talk about the draft, but I also have this thing about changing the NBA season. And it also addresses the draft pick, and I want your guys' take on it, even though I've already kind of gotten it. I want to talk about it on air. So,
conspiracy theory, Shaun?
It deals with playoffs more than just the finals. It's really cool, and I want to talk to you guys about it.
And Space Jam.
And also incentives for keeping players beyond just the Supermax. Because, you don't want to screw them. You don't want to say, well, once you're drafted, that's your team. Because it's that sucks. But you also, I don't love the changing of teams so much. And, everybody goes, and who knows where they're going to end up. And we're going to create a super team. And all the small market teams are kind of boned. But that's next time. And, of course, Space Jam. Apparently, LeBron James having a hell of a time getting people to play in Space Jam with him.
Nobody likes LeBron.
Yeah.
Womp womp.
Although, rumors Klay Thompson is locked in to play in it. So
I can see Klay doing that.
Yeah.
He decided to join the Monstars team against LeBron because he hates LeBron.
Yeah, and so does Steph Curry.
Because that's how this movie works. It's it's not a script.
Hold on. The Monstars are just the Warriors.
That could be.
That's it. They're not even they're not even super. They're just the Warriors.
Let's be honest, J.R. Smith was basically a Looney Tune. So, I mean, it wouldn't be that much of a downgrade for LeBron either.
If you're LeBron James and you're writing this movie, I think the Warriors are the Monstars. I think that's perfect.
And he assembles a super team by sucking out the soul of Chris Paul and Carmelo Anthony, and I'm surprised they haven't done it. They're all, banana boat buddies. Why aren't those the guys in the movie?
Maybe it'll take a violent turn and he'll sacrifice Ball and Kuzma and Ingram in a volcano. And
this sounds like the next episode of Game of Zones.
Yeah, slits their throat over the volcano and then gets their power.
I like it. That's the end of this episode. Next week, I think we'll talk about E3 because there's a lot of different cool news that came out of that, and no news whatsoever from Sony, which is news in itself because I think they fucked up. But that's for next time. Next week, E3 discussion. We'll go over all the big stuff, including the new characters for Smash, and there's some other cool things.
Breath of the Wild 2.
Animal Crossing getting delayed. Nobody cares on this show.
Final Fantasy 7.
Yeah, being episodic-ier than we thought. Potentially, but looking really cool for the first section. Yeah. All that stuff. In between episodes, you can find us on our website, objectionnetwork.com, on social media, at Team Objection on Facebook and Twitter. It's youtube.com/Objection Network for new videos 7 days a week. And finally, you can send emails to the show to objectionnetwork@gmail.com. See you next time.